Hey, ladies and gents, welcome to the Controlled Interest Gamecast, episode 143, where we talk about video games and everything happening in the industry. As always, I'm joined by Jordan.
Avengers, assemble!
And Dom.
Praise the old blood. Wait. Is there a phrase in Sekiro similar to praise the sun or...
Ooh.
May the good blood guide your way.
May the good blood... Yeah, there's that. Is there something like that that's come out of Sekiro yet?
I think there's one that has to do with the, what is it called? The promise that the shinobi has to make to the master. Doesn't he say, like, the Iron Code or something? Not fear the Iron Code. It's like follow the Iron Code or something like that.
There's something like that.
I'm definitely misquoting it, but it's something like that.
Yeah. No, I know what you're talking about. Then there's something that him and the Divine Heir or whatever.
Yeah, I was going to say, isn't there something to do with the Divine Heir?
Yeah. I'm gonna. You know what? Next week I'm gonna have it ready to go.
The Iron Code thing is when you first hear at the beginning of the game, after the tutorial part, when he like kneels in front of him and he gives him back his sword. He's like, "Take the Iron Code" or whatever the hell. Yeah, good question though. I haven't really remembered.
Take the Iron Code.
Take the Iron Code. Here. Let's hop into what we've been playing. Which one you want to go first?
Well, I'm gonna go because Sekiro. We're already talking about it. This game is even better than I said it was last week. This is a really good video game.
What area are you in? Like,
Maibu Village.
Okay. I like that area.
Pretty far along.
Yeah.
I think it's not like the last area level or anything like that, but I think I'm pretty close to the end, depending on what ending.
I'm hearing that. I don't remember the name. That's the like undead village, right?
Yeah, the enemies there are really weird, super easy, but they're all like the villagers there are just they're all like, I don't know yet. I'm still going through the area, but it seems like the one guy I talked to is like, yeah, everyone here is drunk on sake because the priest here made us drink it, and it's like, I'll report back later.
The one thing I will say is, I don't know if you found them or not. There's a couple of NPCs that are pretty well hidden in that area, so just make sure to explore to find them, because they're kind of. They're very hidden in terms of like normal NPCs. It is towards the end of the game, but the weird thing with that game is that it's non-linear in like a couple of the areas. So like for instance, I beat that area and beat the boss of that area before I beat the boss we talked about last week that you finally beat.
Genichiro?
Yeah, I didn't want to spoil it for Jordan if he didn't know or not, so I was just being vague. I don't know if we mentioned it last week, so it doesn't matter. So I did that out of order, but then now I'm really close to the end of the game, and
before you go further into your discussion, I'm getting to the point where I don't have any right to really say like spoilers, dude. Like,
yeah,
it's about time you guys should be able to talk freely. So
it's a hard game; it can take time. So
I think Dom and
I'm not even actually playing it currently, so like you guys can, especially when I was like, you should see Avengers or we're gonna talk about it, Dom.
I think Dom and I are kind of like, we'll just talk about it in like more in depth once we both finish it, which I'm pretty close to doing. But there's a really cool thing at the end of towards the end of the game that has to do with monkeys. That's totally out of left field for us from game, which is really cool.
Okay, because that was the one thing I was gonna say. I beat the Guardian Ape twice and his buddies.
Baku.
Just fuck that guy for one.
He's the most. I think he's the best designed boss in that game, hands down.
Yeah, I liked him a lot. He does one move that I just loved. Like, all the enemies in this game, actually, the way they attack is so different, and they take so much to getting used to. Just the timing, like they really. From really is screwing with us, like the way someone draws his sword back and then like starts to go and then stops, or just like the timing is so weird on these attacks. They really make you learn that shit. But then the ape for sure does one move where it's like a body slam onto his back, and he'll miss, and you're like, oh cool, I can get some shots in here. Then all of a sudden he just starts flailing his arms while he's on his back, like very very quickly. and so like you just get destroyed after you go in for those hits. They do a lot of mixing up the way these enemies attack. That it's not traditional video game stuff.
After you beat him, the reveal of why he was the way he was is really cool, because you're like, hey, this doesn't make sense. So it's contextually, you would earlier in the Senpu Temple and stuff, you were introduced, and it was really cool. Yeah,
all that stuff is really. The story in this game is you can actually fucking follow it, and it's actually told to you.
You don't have to watch explicitly. 10 videos.
Yeah. Not that I don't like that stuff too, but this is just more. This is what's going on, and it makes sense. And the stuff you're doing, you know why you're doing it. So like how you handle enemies like that ape that are the way they are for that specific reason. This is kind of weird to talk about without spoiling it, but that's all really cool. So I still adore this game, and I already made I thought I was about to make the one big choice after Genichiro. I think at some point was you can either continue to follow these guidelines, the Iron Code, I guess I could just say that, or you can do something that would be against it. And immediately I was like, well, fuck that code. I'm going to do this other thing. But then the dialogue option was not actually a dialogue option, because it just kind of says he just mutters to himself, I must follow the code. It's like, well, why do you let me choose the goddamn option then if it doesn't actually do anything? I was upset about that. But I think that later on...
partly be towards the end of our final choice in most From games,
That's what I figured, that there's going to be something like that. But this game is awesome, and I'm still loving it. I'm getting really good at it now. Playing a lot on Vita, actually. Believe it or not. It works out pretty well. Some of the bosses that are faster get tough because of the lag, but...
So, do you guys think that they were influenced by Neo's story being a cohesive cutscene based voice actors and all that?
No, I think they were more influenced by Activision publishing it, if I'm being honest. I think that because they've talked about Miyazaki had talked about that they wanted to work with Activision because of a lot of the tools and resources they have at their fingertips that not a lot of Japanese publishers have, in terms of marketing and consumer information of gamers tend to like this at the beginning of the game, and this will help your game sell well. Those minute businessy kind of things in terms of game design. There was a very interesting piece of Miyazaki talking about that, of they wanted to specifically work with a Western publisher because of those tools that they have. And I think...
Isn't it weird that there's still that gap? That Japanese developers or smaller publishers don't feel like they have those tools already at their disposal. We just feel like we're all playing the games that come out from great global developers, but we don't realize that there's still some disconnect as far as maybe engine tools, Square Enix finally coming around to Unreal, stuff like that.
I think it's really cool that we're in a state now where both Western developers and Eastern developers they don't have their pride in the way. So there's some stuff that Japanese developers do that cater to a Japanese audience that Western developers don't really do, and we don't really see them have success in Japan, right? And they're trying to get advice for that. And like we just talked about, there's Japanese developers who are seeing a lot of these back-end metrics that these publishers have in the West that help for better game sales and just better entry to a game's world. And I think they're partially, obviously, probably inspired by games like Neo and that but from what Miyazaki was saying, I think they wanted this to feel like a more westernized narrative for a video game that we're used to. I don't think that Bloodborne 2 will be like this. I think it'll still be more like Bloodborne and Souls. But I do think that Sekiro is their franchise to do this.
You just said Bloodborne 2 like it's a thing.
Like it's happening. Yeah, I know. Sorry. Dom, what else did you play? Just Sekiro?
That's it, dude. I mean, it's so damn good. It's I haven't felt like this, since Bloodborne, and then before that, Dark Souls 1, right? That moment of you just feel good, just owning the combat and just playing the damn
learning
game is just so good.
Because why didn't you mention Dark Souls 3? But if you're comfortable with Dark Souls, you can hop into Dark Souls 3 and be competent. But you're saying Dark Souls, Bloodborne, the differences.
Yep.
Yeah.
2 and 3, I kind of just walk through. Okay, that's not fair.
Yeah. Nameless King, just walk through them, no problem.
It wasn't a whole different type of combat, from 1, whereas Bloodborne was very different. You did have to learn a lot of new stuff, and then this is even more different. Yeah, you have to constantly learn new stuff, and then having the different tools, the prosthetic tools, it's much different than, you know, like the magic or the different things in Dark Souls games. Like the prosthetic tools are just like very deliberately functional, if that makes sense. They do specific things exactly how you think they would. They're really cool.
Speaking of the gorilla, like, so when you use the firecracker on the bull earlier in the game, it's like, oh, well, this works on animals. So when I went to go fight the gorilla, I was like, he's an animal, so I wonder if this will work. So I equipped it, worked like a charm, and then I was reading through the prosthetic tools, and I saw the umbrella. You have that one, I'm assuming. And I was reading through, and I was like, what would this be good for? And then when I found out that he had that terror attack where he screams, I tried it, and I was like, oh, hell yeah. It made everything a lot easier. It's cool to experiment with them, and just reading them and applying them to combat, it totally makes sense. So, yeah, I'm with you.
There's so many things, like, and this game is definitely easier than the others, I'd say, the other Souls games, but it still requires learning. But once you learn, and, like, I don't know, I think it's faster and easier. You can get through a boss fight really quick, just primarily because of the posture thing. If you can figure out a way to exploit an enemy's posture, then you don't even have to, you know, get most of their health. I'm starting to get really good at that kind of shit now that I have, like, there's like a double overhead sword slash combat art you can do, and it just wrecks posture, and I've been abusing that a lot now too. There's just so much. It's such a good game, you guys.
On top of that, like, vitality and not stamina, posture, because they're tied to like separate items and not you specifically leveling up. There's like a ton of prayer beads, right? And gourd seeds are pretty easy to find too if you just explore. So it is easier, but I still think the game is a challenge, you know. So
oh yeah, definitely. There's one last thing I can't remember. Let's move on.
Jordan, what have you been playing?
So didn't play a whole lot. I did play some though, and the game that I did play was Katana Zero.
Oh, nice.
Got several days in there and finished several levels, and then I'd say that it is. I don't necessarily think I love it, but I like it a whole lot. I think it's a really good game. It's 2D side scroller, neon cyberpunk, fast paced, kind of like we were talking about, almost like a 2D Sekiro in some ways. And it's pretty much one hit kill for both you and your enemies, and you're just busting through these levels. And Jared, you'd kind of talked about the story, how you're like talking to this therapist, and he's giving you drugs, and you're working for this corporation. It's all very cyberpunk, and it's clearly got some other things going on with the kind of glitchy trip type of stuff that's going on with your character. So yeah, it's cool. I think you had mentioned that it's almost made so that you're just quickly jumping back in whenever you die, and you can try levels out a bunch of different ways. I will say some of the levels get to the point where they almost feel like they should have a checkpoint, because you have to do like complicated maneuvers to get through certain guys, and then you want to be able to kind of experiment with this next set of guys that's in the really hard part of the level, but then you keep having to go through the entire thing just to get to that part. So that would be nice, but maybe that's not what they wanted to do. Maybe they thought about it and decided against it. So
my excuse for that would probably be because this game was almost entirely made by one person, right? Which is impressive in its own right. Sure. I mean, he didn't do the music, but like he did most of the art and the programming, stuff like that. I assume it was just a way of like, well, if they have checkpoints, then that would probably shorten the total play time and remove some of the challenge. I do agree with you. Like checkpoints would have changed it. I don't know if for better or worse, but I think like you said, you want to. There's like sections of like easier enemies and then sections of harder enemies. So you kind of have to go through like the simpler guys to get to the tougher guys. And if you die trying something, then you have to go all the way back to the beginning. And it can be frustrating.
If you do it 15 times, then even the easy guys are annoying.
Yeah, I just think it's because of that probably. But I mean, that's not a.
It's one of those things where you can clearly tell that that's programmed into the game length. You know, you trying over and over again, because if you were doing these levels, just a couple times, then you'd be done really quick. It'd be a 30-45 minute game or something. I'm sure speedrunners will let us know.
We'll do that either way.
Zipping through the game. Once you've know what kind of sequence of moves you need to use, whether it's throwing an item, using your sword, dashing, slowing down time, whatever it may be. Once you can kind of figure out that sequence for each individual part of these levels, these groups of guys that you're going against, then it's almost people have described it as kind of a puzzle game in that way. So that part is interesting, and then you also brought up the music. I'm glad you did, because it's also really great and adds to that whole cyberpunk atmosphere, which I kind of predicted was going to be taking over in entertainment and media, and it has in a way, not quite as much. It definitely didn't catch on the way I thought, but there's still certainly a rising interest in it and a peaking interest in it. So this is certainly part of that wave, and one of the quality entries in that wave. So the music absolutely has to do with that, and they do a great job with it. It's interesting to see these games that do the whole pixelated look, the pixel art look, and they're meant to look like they could just be on a Super Nintendo, right? On a PlayStation 1, something like that. And it's interesting to see how some of these certain developers go about using the user interface and the different parts in the game, like when you're burning the file, Jared, of which guy you're about to assassinate. Different things like that, like how deep they go into giving it this classic look and feel. And I really like the cassettes that are tangible in the game, where your character is actually like taking the cassette tape and putting it in his player, pressing play, and then you see the little display come through with the artist's name and the song on the bottom of the screen. I really enjoy that. So this game has plenty of cool touches like that. The pixel art itself is beautiful. When you're in the therapist's office, it's so intricately detailed. It's just this one wide shot of his opulent office, and it's the attention to detail in this game, the eye for design in this game is definitely there, and I'm appreciating it quite a bit. So
the fact that it's a mix of like cyberpunk and then samurai is getting really big now too, so like it nails both of those. And
they make so much sense together. Cyborg Ninja and so many others. I think you kind of got that vibe.
It's in Mortal Kombat technically.
I'll ask you this question, Jared: is Ronin a spoiler? That's trailers. No, that's in trailers. So when you have Ronin in Avengers Endgame, which basically, unfortunately, the whole Ronin part is in the trailer almost. It's not that long, but that's from the comics, obviously. Hawkeye going to Japan and being the samurai and all these neon signs around him, the actual comic Ronin itself. That's Samurai Jack. That's well-worn territory, I wouldn't say in a bad respect, but they're kind of a peanut butter and chocolate thing. They go well together, so I certainly do appreciate the both the katana and the zero, the samurai and the cyberpunk aspects of this game. So besides that, I was kind of got myself in a bit of a tizzy for the preparation of Avengers Endgame, and of course I was going to rewatch Infinity War, but ended up also watching both Black Panther and Thor Ragnarok, which I would say are two of the more recent entries that I wasn't thrilled upon, that I felt like a lot of other people were thrilled upon, that I wasn't necessarily in love with, I guess. And so I liked Black Panther a little bit more than the first time I watched it. Fucking Everett Ross, Martin Freeman's character is still so blatantly pointless in that movie, and really does take away from it in the end, because of his kind of just MCU addition, just to be a connection to Civil War. And then I would say I like Thor Ragnarok quite a bit better, but I will say, Jared, I know that plenty of people will disagree with me. I still think that Infinity War is the funniest movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Funniest.
The funniest.
Interesting.
The funniest. And I will also say about Endgame, no spoilers, it's obviously a more serious movie. Everybody knows that. But even when they are joking, I would say that the jokes are like, they're clearly written by the same people, and they're the same vibe as Infinity War, but they're not quite as funny. Like, I think Infinity War, watching it just the other day, it still cracks me up. Like, so there's so many good jokes, and I think that they can get lost in the shuffle when it comes to this gigantic, epic situation that they're in, these circumstances that they're dealing with. I can get that, but I just feel like if you just take the jokes out and you just look at them individually, like, Infinity War has almost like 100 jokes that are just fucking laugh out loud funny. So what do you think, Jared?
I see Thor Ragnarok I think is funny, but I do think when people say it's the funniest movie in the MCU, I don't think it's like that clear cut.
Okay. So you love Thor Ragnarok though, right?
I do, but I'm not one of those people that's, it's the funniest movie in the MCU.
Okay.
It's very funny.
That's interesting. That's very interesting that you don't necessarily agree with the consensus about the humor.
Yeah, I think it's very funny, but for me, like, I personally find
funny.
I find the first Ant-Man really funny. I think the first Guardians is really funny too.
Guardians 1 and 2 for me are fucking hilarious, and I will say that's why Infinity War is the funniest, because you have all the Russo jokes throughout the movie, which are very well written, but then you have the James Gunn Guardians of the Galaxy writing, which is fucking hilarious. Like, Drax acting like he's invisible because he stands still, and Peter Quill trying to deepen his voice when he's trying to like look like as good as Thor because everybody's worshiping him when he crashes into their ship. There's so many.
I'm not mocking you, you're mocking me.
Hilarious. Yeah. There's so many fucking hilarious movies hilarious jokes in that movie, just in the Guardians part. So
I agree. Infinity War is funny. No spoilers. I think Endgame is pretty funny as well. I think the reason why I think Thor Ragnarok stands out for people is because it is so Taika Waititi, so it feels different in that way. Absolutely, so I think people put different humor for the best humor, and I think maybe because the Russo brothers have done so well with humor throughout their films, people are kind of used to it in some way. So I'm with you. I think Infinity War has a case for the funniest. For me, not necessarily, it'd probably be Guardians 1 or Ant-Man, but I'm with you that I don't think Thor Ragnarok is like the cream of the crop in terms of comedy in the MCU.
Yeah, so I'll close out by giving you my top 5 MCU funniest movies.
Okay.
Number 1, Avengers Infinity War. Number 2, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Number 3, Guardians of the Galaxy. Number 4 is going to be Thor Ragnarok, and then I would say Ant-Man comes in at number 5.
That's a good list. Mine wouldn't be exactly the same, but I dig it. I don't have any hot takes on your top 5 funniest MCU films.
Because I can appreciate that other people appreciate the like New Zealand awkward improv comedy in Ragnarok, and there's a lot of parts that are fucking hilarious. But I just think the jokes in Infinity War and the Guardians movies are so well written and obviously so well acted. That's what brings them to life. So there you go. I mean, MCU top 5 funniest movies.
Who would have thought that before he was introduced into Guardians that Batista would be one of the funniest improv actors in Hollywood? A lot of his drag stuff is improvised. Not all of it hits, but a lot of it does, and it's really funny.
You should both fight with knives. Yes, with knives.
So for me, I didn't actually play a whole lot. Played a little bit of Sekiro. Like I told you, Dom, I'm near the end, so I think we probably will finish around the same time, sometime this coming week. Katana Zero, I didn't get a chance to hop back in, Jordan. I think that'll probably be finished by next week as well. From what I heard, it's not a very long game. I wasn't expecting one, but yeah. Reigns Game of Thrones, the game I was telling you guys about, where you like make choices and stuff. I unlocked all 9 characters in it, and it's really cool because I don't know if I mentioned this when I was talking about it, but every time you start a new reign with the character, there's 3 objectives that pop up, and it's like meet the mysterious warrior or find out who's been hiding in the dungeon. And a lot of those goals lead to you unlocking the other characters that you can have reigns with. But some of them are character specific. So like there's a goal to find out who killed Cersei's men. And in order to get to the path where you can get to the investigation part of finding it out, you have to have somebody who can be in the good graces of the Lannisters to some extent. So it's a goal that you can pretty much only get to by using Tyrion or Jaime. So like if you start with like Jon Snow or Daenerys or something, you're not going to really be able to get to that goal. And there's a ton of goals in the game for different characters and stuff. It's really fun. Obviously it's not like super in depth, but in this zeitgeist of Game of Thrones, it's just another cool way to interact with that universe and make decisions that you probably wouldn't see on the show, right?
I did check it out because you brought it up and all that. I didn't realize how simplistic it was of a card game.
It's a Tinder. It's a Tinder.
It's like swipe left, swipe right. So it's still cool, and I can totally dig the vibe, but I wasn't, even though it's super cheap, I was still like, I think I've got plenty to play, and this is not necessarily piquing my interest.
It's a mobile game that came to Switch. It's not a Switch game that started on mobile,
Right.
The cool thing is, one thing I didn't know about is there's these secrets you can find out about that help you make the right decisions, and there are these specific, like, little chunks of information you find out from people that are really important, and they'll be in your pause menu and tell you, like, specific things. So, for instance, I've unlocked one of them, and it's never trust somebody who shifts their eyes. So, in my Reigns campaigns now, sometimes characters will come up and tell me about something, but on the card, their eyes will animate and they'll be very shifty. So it's something I pay attention to now because I know that they're not necessarily telling me the truth, which gives me a leg up in terms of choosing and talking to them, right? And that's something I didn't know about at the beginning of the game.
For eyes too.
So they like shift left and right. It's very weird, especially because they are like 3 pixels on each side. But it is a cool little bit of information. And it's not a super in-depth game. It's just something I'll pick up when I have like 5 minutes, And the campaigns they're not like super vastly different, but you do get a certain flavor with each character. Like with Sansa, a lot of times you're told like, go back to Winterfell, or what should we do with Jon or Sam? And like with Daenerys, one of the cool things with Daenerys is that you have some decisions to make, whether to go back to Marine because Dario Naharis is like in trouble. Some really cool stuff. Like I said, we haven't gotten a great or even good AAA Game of Thrones game, so just anything to play in the meantime, man. We got that weird RPG that came out a long time ago that wasn't very good. Other than that, we haven't gotten anything. So,
Telltale game was alright.
Yeah, did you enjoy the Telltale game?
Yeah, I completely forgot about that. I wouldn't consider that AAA though.
Oh, absolutely not. I wouldn't either. But,
I really enjoyed it. I think I was higher on it than a lot of people. A lot of people were like kind of down on it, weirdly.
I can't think of a Game of Thrones game that's been better received. I know there was supposed to be like a Game of Thrones RPG on the PS3 gen, but I don't think that was very well received at all.
I think it came in like in the 60s for Metacritic, which we'll be talking about in a couple of seconds in terms of a new game that came out. Not in the 60s, but where it landed on Metacritic. I think that's everything for me. We're not going to... We talked to each other about Endgame before we started. We're not going to really mention anything here because we're recording literally the day after it premiered. But yeah, I would suggest if you're interested in the MCU at all, definitely go watch it. I don't know why you'd need me to tell you to go watch it, which is weird. But even from whether you like the movie or not us, I'm just saying people in general, this is like a really cool, like, culturally defining moment. The only other time in my life I can think of something like this big was Episode 1 for Star Wars. Obviously, that movie wasn't great, but I remember how excited people were that Star Wars had returned. And the culmination of this being 11 years, 21 films, it's really cool. So.
Well, I'm going to quick jump off that and be like, and I'm going to say, Episode 1 was great. Damn it.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's not the point.
I don't.
But in addition to what,
Yikes.
What were you gonna say?
In addition to that, I've not been big into the MCU, but it's super, super awesome to see this kind of thing become so mainstream to where most people in my office today are talking about it, right? And that's not something that is so much looked on as weird to talk about at work in a professional office setting anymore. I mean, depending on where you're at, of course, and the age of the people you work with, but it's cool to see that start to permeate into regular conversations. Like, it's just the next thing. Like you talk about the weather or other adult things, right? It's just it's not relegated. Yeah.
I was a little bit sad watching it because I was like, if I'm being selfish, I would like Justice League to be having this situation go down.
Yeah.
But the MCU has gotten me to fall in love with the Avengers in a lot of ways, and so for hardcore Marvel people, I'm very happy for them.
Well, that's the crazy thing too. I want to get to the news because we definitely have a hard out on this podcast, but a lot of people forget that the Avengers were popular before the MCU, but Justice League was more popular than the Avengers were by far. Because of...
I didn't even know.
That's the weird thing is, like, as popular as the MCU is and as shitty as the DC movies are, Justice League is still huge, And so it's not inconceivable that we couldn't have a situation like this for Justice League, and that's what makes it so sad. But
I think...
To prove your point, Jared... I didn't even know what the Avengers was until the movie came out in like 2012, and I was with a bunch of guys I was playing hockey with at the time, and we were looking for something to do, and we said, well, let's go see the Avengers. And I'm like, what's that? Like, oh, it's like, Captain America and Iron Man. I'm like, oh yeah, I know Iron Man, but I'm like, I didn't know that they had like their own version of the Justice League. Was literally the thought in my head.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good point.
Well, that's the unfortunate thing I think with DC too, is because I think they felt that like, oh well, Justice League is so popular, we don't really need to take the same steps that Marvel did to create the MCU. We could just do a couple of movies and jump right into the team up, and that backfired heavily. So, let's talk about some news. First up, Days Gone released. It's currently sitting at a 72 on Metacritic, so it's not terrible. It's about what I expected. I don't remember. I know, Dom, you were looking forward to playing it, but I don't know where you fell in terms of how you felt it was going to review.
Yeah, and Metacritic is interesting because this is one where I think most of the reviews are in the 7-something range. There's a couple 8s, but then there's also like a couple 5s and 6s. So like, it's not. Some people thought it was straight up like bad, and at best some people thought it was good. Yeah. So I mean, I guess it averages out, but there were some professional reviewers or whatever who thought it was straight up just not good. So I mean, you got to look at it. But I'm interested in it. I mean, I like zombie games, and I loved Sons of Anarchy, and the corniness of that. Like, there's that one line going around that I thought was funny,
that thing makes me cringe. I'm not a fan of that
word. What is it?
They're at their wedding ceremony, and the girl, his wife or whatever says, or his fiance at the time says, I hope you ride me like your motorcycle or something like that, right?
Yeah, as much as you ride your motorcycle, which is it's like intentionally corny, and it's something that like
Sons of Anarchy or
Days Gone. This isn't Days Gone.
Yeah. So they said that in that show too, in Sons, and they all like, and it's at a biker wedding, and like all the guys are just like, they crack up like, it's like just a joke that apparently is common, and that kind of thing. But it sounds bad out of context when you just see the meme. You're like, oh, well, that's done. And if you don't,
okay,
yeah. But I'm
just imagining like a bunch of, I hate to be this guy, but a bunch of old white dudes that are like really
basically
into the Sons of Anarchy show. That's like,
well, the director of Days Gone is like a Sons of Anarchy super fan.
That's what I'm saying. And so all these dudes are like, bro, what if we put zombies in Sons of Anarchy? But we
that
call
seems
them
to be what
freakers.
it is.
From what I read,
into it, dude.
From what I read, the big issues with it are that it suffers from some performance problems,
So,
and in terms of gameplay, that the game feels a little bit too long, and it feels bloated in terms of like side missions and stuff. But it isn't. I don't think it's a unfortunate game in the sense of like Crackdown 3, where that game felt unfinished and hollow. I think this game is the opposite of them bloating the game and maybe putting too much into the game and sacrificing working out the performance kinks, because we knew about the performance stuff even from early previews. People were talking about, even like Brandon Jones from Easy Allies had mentioned frame rate issues. Michael Huber had mentioned that it stuttered a bit and there was some pop-in issues during previews, so I assumed it was going to launch with those. But the reason I wanted to bring it up,
I was just going to say about the performance issues, that whole thing just kind of wraps it up for me. Like, this looks definitely like a game when the DLC's out, when they fix the performance issues, when it's on sale for 20 or 30
it's $30
for the complete edition or whatever, I'll be like, hell yeah, I'm down for that. But
me too.
Right now it's kind of, maybe it's not a swimming in sevens, maybe it is an 8 that just has bugs and is a little too long. But you know, like watching the Easy Allies review and the NPCs, like the way that they like almost like PS3 characters, and like they're even worse than the stiff ones in Horizon Zero Dawn, which is the other, you know, Sony first party RPG-ish type of game that we've been getting recently. And those were rough. So they were like really high res, but they were rough. They were very stiff. So this game is one of those ones where it's maybe not necessarily a full miss, but they didn't knock it out of the park for sure.
I just think this game started development at a time when, if this game would have released at that time, I think it would have been received a lot more favorably. But I think in many ways, like we saw with Fallout 4 and these other titles, even Kingdom Hearts 3 to an extent, they're games that were released out of the time in which they would have thrived. Like the industry's kind of evolved past them, you know, and we expect more from games. That being said, it's still, I mean, I don't think a low 70 is a bad game. For me personally, it's like I'll never play this game just because we talk about this all the time, Jordan.
There's too much else.
There's so much stuff. There's so much like quote unquote good stuff that I have to pass on. I'm not going to take the time to play this in exchange for something else. You know what I mean? Which kind of sucks, but it's just the way
that's
we
true.
live.
I don't necessarily know that I'll ever get to it, so I shouldn't be too hasty.
I only will because, like I said, I love like the two.
You're so interested.
Two settings.
Yeah.
To me, it's like, okay, then that will like hopefully make, you know, allow me to somewhat overlook some of the, you know, maybe it's not the greatest gameplay or, you know, rewarding type stuff or whatever else, but this also makes me. This one was one that I obviously wanted to like a lot, and I might have picked it up sooner if it, you know, maybe reviews were a good point or two on average better. But it just reminds me of a bit of Crackdown, a bit of Mass Effect Andromeda, and like how we kind of jump in on this meme culture and kind of to just shit on things. That there's one thing, like when we're talking about it and like we're literally discussing reviews and the stuff people said they don't like about it and stuff like that. But then there's like passing around memes out of context, making fun of shit without even knowing much about it or having actually read reviews or whatever it is. And that stuff is like legitimately affecting the perception of the game. And I don't know. It's not to say like we shouldn't critique things. We should, but some people are weird about it.
There is the opposite end of it too.
Sorry, what is it? My face is tired from Mass Effect Andromeda.
Oh, yeah.
And like they can't, the characters literally can't move their faces. You know, that's meme worthy.
Or the stair thing where they like squat walk before they pass.
I want you to ride me more than your motorcycle, or the Assassin's Creed Unity fucking hair and eyeballs and teeth, but no head.
Or the MLB Show freaky face thing.
Meme worthy. Oh god, yeah. And NBA, they have some scary like creative face. Oh
yeah,
creative player.
The last thing I'll add before we move on, Dom, is there's also an opposite end of that where there's these entitled, and I'm not saying this is only a Sony thing. This happens with, there was people like this with Crackdown 3 as well, but there's these and I think it's more drastic with PlayStation because of the stellar track record they have with exclusives.
That different expectations.
Days Gone came out and it reviewed mediocre, right? They're like, well, your review doesn't make sense. There's no way a Sony exclusive should be rated this low. You're just hating on PlayStation, yada, yada, yada. So there's the opposite end of that of, like, people defending it to a crazy extent. It's like, dude,
definitely.
You don't think Sony was bound to have a game that didn't hit? Like, the fact that they were on their streak was something we hadn't really seen isn't super impressive. So it was like this weird entitled thing. Like I said, this happens with Xbox too. This isn't just a PlayStation thing. It happens with Nintendo as well. But I think because there's this sense of entitlement for a group of the audience, they felt that there's no way this game should have reviewed that badly, which is a weird.
Honestly,
stance.
I mean, maybe they couldn't get the game running, but how did this game need to come out now? Like, how is this game not ready a year ago? You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a whole question with Bend.
They are a smaller studio. I'm not convinced that, and it doesn't seem that anyone else is, I guess, but I don't get the vibe that Bend is anywhere near on the talent level of some of the other Sony first-party studios like Sucker Punch, Naughty Dog. Obviously, Insomniac's not first-party, but making the games the Sony exclusives like that, like Spider-Man. Obviously, I just don't think they're anywhere near that level, so it's only, unfortunately, probably going to continue to show if they're releasing games alongside of God of War, like Santa Monica's game, for example. So,
I mean, the argument to that, too, is like, what if Bend was trying to do that and they didn't have the resources, so they pulled themselves too thin, and because of that, you got a game like this, right? Like, they were trying to be those studios when they should have realized they weren't, and should have had a different scope for a project. Yeah, but there's
just a lot about this game that doesn't scream creativity or imagination like some of the other games do. At the very least, that's what Media Molecule has, right? But, like, when Naughty Dog does The Last of Us, they're not just doing a zombie twist. They're doing a whole other thing that you got to play it to comprehend. You got to experience to comprehend. And this does not seem like that. I'm not saying that they just copied Naughty Dog, but this is not a Horizon Zero Dawn. This is not like a brand new, like, wait, what's happening? This is, cavemen after we've gone extinct and they're fighting technological dinosaurs or whatever. Like, Freakers and a guy on, Sons of Anarchy. Some guy watched Sons of Anarchy and was like, oh man, I like zombies too.
Well, the crazy thing there is, like, whether or not people like Sons of Anarchy or not, it's still a kind of niche thing, right? Like, I've heard people who love Sons of Anarchy, but it never exploded, like, culturally, like, huge. So it's like you're mixing a niche thing with zombies who are kind of on the way down. It's a very interesting case. I hope it sells well for Bend. It's interesting to see where they go from here. The last thing I wanted to mention, Dom won the prediction. Out of the 3 games, Dom picked Yoshi's Crafted World, I picked Days Gone, and Jordan picked Crackdown 3. Which one would have the highest review? Dom won. Yoshi's Crafted World had an 80.
Man, obviously, I was pulling the wild card on that one.
Well, I was negative on Days Gone, but I still thought it was going to review higher because it is a Sony exclusive, and I was wrong. Next up, Square Enix. They announced their conference. They're going to be taking over PlayStation's E3 slots. They're going to be at 6 p.m. Monday, June 10th. People think that, they're taking over PlayStation slots, so they must have big things to show. I'm being cautiously optimistic. I don't think people are like, we're going to see Avengers. Assumption. We're going to see Final Fantasy 7. We're going to see Final Fantasy 16. People forget that last year they had that weird, like, it was like a deaf guy game. Remember that? They had that during their conference. I forgot what it was called.
Yeah. We obviously don't know what the future of the Avengers movie franchise is after Endgame, but if you don't start showing this video game off, the magic is only going to be fading. Like, I don't think that Avengers 5 is going to be coming around anytime soon. Right?
No, I'm with you on that.
So, like, you need to cash in while Avengers 4 is still a thing, and that means this year, at least reveal-wise, so fucking get on it, Square Enix.
Well, and the crazy thing is they're coming after. There's no Sony, so they're coming after Microsoft, and we know that they're going to want to have something on Microsoft's show. So how are they going to, if they do show Avengers, are they going to do a slight reveal for Microsoft and then gameplay for them? It's going to be weird how they shifted around and figured it out. Because out of the third-party partners, I guess Ubisoft doesn't really show up on Microsoft's stage that much. EA does, but EA always comes before Microsoft, so they don't really have that issue, right? This is going to be weird because, like, what does Square Enix decide to show at Microsoft's? They do have the partnership. We've seen multiple Square games on Microsoft's conference, whether that be Awesome Captain Underpants, or whatever the hell that game was called, the like adventure,
Underpants.
the prequel to Life is Strange 2,
Captain Spirit.
Captain Spirit, there you go.
Captain Underpants is what great.
Kingdom Hearts 3, even Final Fantasy 15 we saw on Microsoft stage, so we'll see what happens there. Next up, we have a pair of
Raiden. I'll never forget that.
We have a pair of Persona 5 stories that broke people's hearts.
Jeez.
So first off, Persona 5 Royal was announced.
People's hearts, Jared.
Oh.
Persona 5 Royal is going to release later this year in Japan and will come to the West in 2020. It'll feature characters.
Is Persona 5 Royal, Jared?
Well, it's basically a deluxe version of the game that will feature. They say new characters. Specifically, they said one new character that's a female that'll be a part of your group. A transfer student.
Jared, when I say what is Persona 5 Royal, I mean tell me about all the features that I'm going to be enjoying on my Nintendo Switch when this new version comes
well, it's not coming. It's actually a PlayStation exclusive.
Jared, what are you saying right now?
Are
you telling me that I'm not going to be able to play Persona 5 on the Nintendo Switch after I'm already playing Joker in Smash Bros?
Well, wait for the next story because there was a Persona 5S reveal that we'll talk about that could possibly.
I'm leading the audience here.
Yeah. The Persona 5 Royale will also feature Royal. I don't know why I said Royale with cheese. It'll also feature a third semester, and they also talked about a graphics upgrade to 4K and overhauled for PS4 Pro. Remember, Persona 5 was technically a PS3 game, so this is really awesome for people.
It's awesome, but like, is that necessary? I will say, this game came out after the PS4 Pro, and it was one of the first games where it was like, yeah, this is not. It's just the same. You know,
yeah, it's not.
I think
we got it.
The big question though here is like, is this a new $60 game? And if you want these enhanced features, you're bought Persona 4 or 100%. Persona 5 on PS4. You got to buy another $60 game. You don't just get. You know what I mean? That to me is kind of like fucking dumb.
Some 100%. Companies will do an upgrade system like that.
Yeah. With this though, I don't know. I think they know their JRPG audience. They're like, we can get another 60.
But Dom, I will say to their credit, and they've obviously done this before with Persona games, when they do this, they insert a new character into the game. So it's not like, it almost is a totally different game where, like, not all, you can't really play as that character, right? Like, that's not the main character, but I feel like they're changing it up enough to where they can kind of almost justify it. I don't agree with them doing that. I think you should be able to upgrade it, but it's like, yeah, if you guys are kind of like changing up the entire main story, and then like you said, adding a third semester, which is not just like story expansion. That's like
substantial.
The way that time works, and you know, your days that you do with all that in Persona, that's pretty in depth, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
The second story, Persona 5S, people thought this might be the Switch version. Okay. Sadly, they were wrong. People thought, Persona
Jared,
5...
you're telling me that Persona 5S doesn't stand for Switch?
It doesn't even stand for Stadium, a Persona fighting game. What it stands for is Scramble. Yes, you heard that right, Scramble. This will be a Persona Musou game. What everyone wanted.
Oh my god, you're talking Hyrule Warriors Persona Edition?
Koei, Tecmo, and Atlas coming together for a game nobody wants. Yeah.
So this is a legit thing. This is not just them making a fake version of that. This is like a Hyrule Warriors legit crossover.
I'm the wrong person to ask for that. From what the trailer I saw, I think.
Well, you were just saying Koei, like the actual company they're doing it with, right?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, this is but no Switch version. Okay.
Yeah. sad I won't be playing Persona 5 anytime soon. Because I was hoping to play it on Switch.
You have a PS4!
Yeah, but it's just a game I'd rather play on the Switch, man.
Yeah, me too. I feel you.
So what if it never comes? I feel like this was the window, man. We miss it. This is getting to be like Bloodborne 2, where it's like, well, we had our chance. It didn't happen. I'm giving up.
Then I'll play Persona 6 on PS5.
But you won't use the PlayStation 4 that you already have to play PS5.
Because it hasn't been on sale enough for me to justify it in terms of like buying a game I'm interested in that's new as opposed to going back and playing it.
In a year, Royal Edition will be $20 or $30. What do you say, Jared?
Well, yeah, I'll probably buy that then, yeah, for sure. But with the announcement of Royal now, I'm not going to buy Persona 5 for $30, when this one's right around the corner.
I won't say that if you play Persona 5 Royal Edition, you've played Persona 5. They're not that different.
Oh, yeah,
you know
yeah.
what I mean?
It's just like, why wouldn't I just wait for the deluxe edition then, Let's up into these March NPDs for 2019. We're going to go over some news and noteworthy stuff. Actually, we'll start with the top 5, and then we'll go to the news and noteworthy. So, Dom, normally you take a look at the list beforehand. Have you seen these?
I actually did not know.
Okay, cool. This will be good. So, the top 5 for March, specifically, okay? You guys have any guesses? I'll give you this hint. It's a 2018 game.
Top 5 for March.
Oh, really? For number 5?
Game.
Yeah, for number 5. It's a 2018 game, a console exclusive.
Oh, really?
Let's not keep this going too long, so kind of be a little bit quicker.
Spider-Man?
Predictions.
No. Smash Brothers.
Yes. Smash Brothers coming in at number 5.
Oh, yeah, because of...
DLC.
Because everyone was so excited about the Persona DLC and then getting Persona 5 on the Switch.
Yep. Number 4, this came out this year. It's a return to form for a series.
Jared, if you want this to go quick, I don't know if you're going to...
It's a Japanese game that came out this year. Return to form.
Return to form. Sekiro?
No. Because return to form signifies that like they had a slump. I don't really count Deracine, so I wouldn't say it was like return to form,
Yeah,
I can only think of...
to just mean like they made a different type of game.
What I'm saying, when I say it, I'm saying like the last version of the last entry in the franchise wasn't super well received.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Devil May Cry.
Yep, Devil May Cry 5.
There you go.
Number 3, MLB The Show. You guys aren't going to guess that, so I'm just going to insert that one.
I got 1 and 2 for sure.
Number 2.
This game has
Anthem.
all Major League Baseball teams in it.
Number 2, this is a return to form in Jordan's sense of the definition.
So it's not Anthem.
No. I said return to form.
This is a studio doing the type of game that they're used to doing.
Yes. What came out in March? Come on now.
Fuck if I know, man. I haven't been paying that much attention.
You said it earlier, Jordan.
Oh, God.
Something Ubisoft?
No. Come on, guys.
When it came out in
There's
March.
so many games.
Sekiro.
Kingdom Hearts
Sekiro is number 2.
Oh, Sekiro.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Shit.
Remember we talked about it sold 3 million copies in its first 3 days.
I'm getting hung up on I'm thinking of the whole year. Like,
yeah.
Anthem must be number 2 of the year thus far.
We'll talk about that next.
Just March.
Number
Gotcha.
1, this is Ubisoft released the game in March. What is that?
No.
No? Come on, you know what game they released in March. It's a sequel to the game that came out the week we started this podcast.
Oh, Division.
Yeah,
Fucking
Division 2.
Jesus.
Division
You're right,
2.
man. Scold me for that.
So now top 5 for 2019.
Far Cry what is it called?
No.
Came out this year, though, right?
Yeah.
I think that was February, though.
I think that was February, yeah, like
Make sure.
16th or something.
Okay.
What is it called? New Dawn?
New Dawn. I think you're
right.
right on that, yeah. I'm just going to go through these top 5 for 2019. So this isn't the last 12 months. This is from January 1st to the end of March. Sekiro's at number 8 on this list. It wasn't in the top 5, but I wanted to mention it because it's pretty impressive. And remember, Sekiro came out with the 26th, I want to say, right? The end of March. So in 5 days, it became number 8, which is cool. Obviously, a lot of these numbers will get pushed back when the fall games come, which are the big boys. But number 5, Red Dead Redemption 2, no surprise. Number 4, RE2 Remake, still holding in, awesome. Number 3, Anthem. Number 2, The Division 2.
Division.
So that came in and swept and came to number 2. And still holding strong at number 1, boys. Kingdom Hearts 3. Crazy.
That much I did read ahead of time. They had a tweet about it or
weird.
something.
I think Division 2 will pass it, if I'm being honest.
Definitely.
But
so will Anthem.
Yeah.
I honestly feel like some of these big sellers this year are still pretty niche games. I understand that Kingdom Hearts is a Final Fantasy Disney crossover that's a big pull, but that and Sekiro have an air about them that could ward off potential onlookers. So,
fair.
I think that it's a little bit surprising to me that they are doing that successfully, and that it's multiple in the same.
Well, with Sekiro,
first part of the year,
I don't think it'll be in the top 10 by the end of the year. Obviously, Kingdom Hearts 3 one is actually really impressive. I think the Sekiro one is really cool, but it won't be there. The Kingdom Hearts 3 thing, for it to be number 1 still in March, I think Anthem
for these games, for me, I'm still surprised that they've done this well.
Yeah. Obviously, Jedi Fallen Order will be up there. The new Call of Duty will be up there. It's going to be... I'm interested to see how Super Mario Maker 2 sells. That one's going to be...
I'm interested to see about Fallen Order, actually.
I think with the Star Wars license, it'll definitely end in top 5. But I think if it gets good reviews, I think could sell like hotcakes, especially with Episode 9 a month later. And it comes out, 3 days after The Mandalorian. There's a lot of Star Wars happening at the end of the year.
And a month before Episode 9.
Guys, I got to be honest with you right now. I fucking need The Mandalorian to be good.
I know.
I need The Mandalorian to be good. I just do. It's like that. I care about Episode 9, okay? But I'm not banking on Episode 9. If The Mandalorian isn't good, I'm a little worried.
Let's get to these news and noteworthies real quick. We're running out of time, so I want to make sure to cover everything. So news and noteworthy, just chime in if you have something to say. Kingdom Hearts 3 is now the best-selling game in the franchise. That's awesome, as to be expected.
Yep.
PlayStation, some of these aren't necessarily NPDs. They're just sales figures that I lumped in because it made sense to lump them in. PlayStation 5 now has shipped 96 million units worldwide. Remember, shipped is different than sold, but it's still very impressive. 96 million, almost to 100. I was an idiot for saying it wouldn't reach that. What an idiot. 2017, Jared. What an idiot. The PS5 will not release during this fiscal year, ending April 30th, 2020. This was actually confirmed by a Sony representative. So I don't think this is huge news for us three because we all assume fall 2020. But there were a lot of people who felt that there was a possibility of it coming out the first quarter of 2020. So this kind of puts those thoughts to rest. And the fact that it was confirmed by a Sony representative makes it clear and cut. The Nintendo Switch was the best-selling hardware for both March and the first quarter of 2019. Once again, we talked about, not surprising, it's the one console that's on an upswing where the other two are ending their generation cycles. It led in both unit and dollar sales, which is also important because it's cheaper than the Pro and the X. It's on par with the Xbox One S and the PlayStation S or Slim or whatever. That's like 300, right? Or is that 250?
I think it depends on the storage size.
Yeah, but like MSRP flat, like the normal.
You're talking about PS4?
Yeah.
Slim. Yeah, I think it's 300.
PS4 Slim only comes 1 terabyte.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Lastly, Nintendo Switch Online has 34. Sorry, I wrote this wrong. Nintendo Switch has sold 34 million units worldwide, which is good. Estimations for the Xbox, I think, are around like 45. Like between 42 and 45 is the last thing I saw. So it's catching up to that. And obviously we just talked about PlayStation 5 shipping 96 million, which isn't sold, but close enough. And lastly, Nintendo Online has 9 million accounts. Then that's excluding trial accounts because there's the trial for it, like is it 1 week or 1 month or whatever it is. So if you look at those numbers, it's sold 34 million units and it has 9.8 million accounts, so it's more than 25% clearly, which is interesting because I guess that'd be Smash, right, and Mario Kart pushing that. Because I don't think definitely. The NES games are really pushing online at this point with a small catalog.
I will say The biggest thing about the online for me is the fact that you can't chat through your console. It doesn't make.
Well, you have in the words of the Diablo mobile developers, you have a cell phone, don't you?
Yeah, but it's not even something I care about. But it's obviously, and I know a lot of people use Discord. Okay, I fucking get that, but it doesn't matter if a lot of people use Discord. More people. There's a lot of Switch users, is what I'm trying to say, that don't have Discord. And they shouldn't have to have Discord because they should be able to chat through their online account on the console that they've already bought.
As dumb as it sounds, achievements would make me sign up for a year. 100%.
Oh, you're not on this shit?
No, I don't have online. I don't need
I'm not either.
You're fucking...
Yeah.
Alright, I'm going to start calling you the Edge because that's where you live, Jared. With those saves not in the cloud, just hanging out on the edge.
We're the majority. We're the 25 million tier 9 of Switch owners.
Well, 24 because
so
it's
you don't have your saves in the cloud either, Dom.
Correct.
I live on the wild side.
Straight up, just like toes curled up over the edge, just wondering, just wait.
Well, the thing is
I'm sure nothing will happen. I'm not actually thinking anything will happen.
So for Dom's sake, we're going to be closing out the show rather quickly so we can get going where he needs to go. But before we go, in terms of what we're going to be playing, I'm hoping to finish Sekiro and Katana Zero and start up my Xbox version of Hollow Knight as well. That's pretty much it for me. Might go see Endgame a second time with me, Madre, but who knows? We'll see. That's pretty much it for me. What about you guys?
That is the thing. I was actually contemplating whether or not I would see Endgame a second time, and after seeing the actual movie, I don't think I will. I'll just wait until it comes out, and I will definitely watch it as soon as it comes out, and I can watch it at home. But
launching on that Disney Plus, my assumption, anyways.
Well, they'll have it on Blu-ray, but
streaming. Sorry, yeah.
Sure. If you're a streamer,
he was a streamer boy.
But anyways, with it being a 3-hour movie and with me feeling like it does feel slow for a decent chunk of the movie, I think that I'll wait, like I said, and that's surprising to me. Usually I would go see, obviously I went to see Infinity War a second time, so yeah, that's I did like the movie, but I think it's the runtime mostly that's like keeping me away from wanting to go to the theater, because it's with previews, with driving to the theater and all that. That's an endeavor, you know. So,
you gonna be playing anything?
I think that now that hullabaloo is over, the Avengers hullabaloo is over, I'm sure that I'll be playing a little bit more. And another thing is I might be reading less comics now. Also been kind of catching up on what I need to catch up on. So definitely be getting around to more Katana Zero, which, you know, just shout out to that game. It's a fucking cool game, man. That's one thing is there's plenty of cool games, but, you know, on this level, I don't think there's very many, and obviously the whole cyberpunk vibe helps that out, but they definitely nailed that part. It's not, you know, there's definitely a lot of games that try to be cool. They're like, dude, isn't this fucking cool, man? And it's like, not really. Whereas Katana Zero is a very cool game, so shout out to Katana Zero for that reason.
Shout out. Dom or Sekiro?
That's all I do. Let's play Sekiro.
Quick question: are either of you getting Rage 2? It's a couple of weeks out.
That would not be a launch day purchase for sure.
I think I'm going to be hopping in day one. I think. I'm on the edge.
Wow. I think it looks...
As
I'm excited to hear...
I'm on the edge.
Exactly. I think it looks really cool.
You live life right there, Edge, don't you?
Yeah.
Like I think it looks awesome and like a lot of fun, but it's just going to be really cheap in a few months. I just know.
Absolutely,
so,
but I am absolutely also excited and interested to learn, you know, what other people think of it. So if you're playing Jared, that's Definitely something I want to know.
I'm just itching for that type of game, man. Like an open world, just shoot stuff, like just have a good time. I'm just itching for that experience right now. So, that's it for this week.
They're having a Borderlands reveal apparently every week leading up to the game. So if that's not, you can just watch Borderlands reveals.
Hopefully Randy Pitchford does another magic trick. I can't wait.
Yeah, exactly right.
Thank you guys for listening. If you can, please leave us a review on iTunes and follow us there. It helps. Even just giving it a star rating and not commenting anything helps us move up in the charts. If you can, go over to YouTube, type in Controlled Interest, we'll pop up. Subscribe to us, hit the bell notification. It helps make sure that you see our uploads whenever they happen, because YouTube has a weird issue with the subscriptions. Leave a like on the video. Smash that like button. Twitter, we're on Twitter as well, as much as we can be. And that is at CTRLINT. Try to have a couple of tweets throughout the week in terms of uploads and some other tweets focusing on the industry and releases and stuff like that. That's at CTRLINT, Controlled Interest abbreviated. I am at Jared _ Dom is at Dom's Oreos, and Jordan is at Mellow Modus. And we'll catch you guys next week, closer to E3. Starting to book guests. We're going to see how everything pans out. No PlayStation this year, which is sad, but I think we'll make do with the conferences.
It's still going to be a dope E3, man.
Yeah.
Without PlayStation, I've been complaining about their E3 conferences for the last year. Like, Xbox has been knocking it out of the park. You think that's going to stop anytime soon? I don't think so.
I think it's only going to get better.
Yeah. And the crazy thing is, Sony had some bad shows, but they just had great games. So, it wasn't terrible because the games were good. So, anyways,
absolutely.
We'll catch you guys next week. See you guys then. Bye.